Hello YouTube. Today on the Naughty Librarian, I am going over some very spooky book recommendations. So it's October, it's fall time, it's Halloween time, it's the perfect time to get some spooky books into your soul. I feel fall is the optimal month for spookiness. And it's Halloween too. Hey, here's recommendations for lots and lots of spooky books I hope you enjoy. I'm gonna start off with Wilder Girls by Rory Power. And this is YA, and I feel like there is a bit of room for improvement, but if I'm just talking about the spookiness aspect of this book, ooh, this is top notch. This is some good body horror. It is creepy. Basically, there is this all-girls school. It's very isolated, and for 18 months they've been in a quarantine. I feel like we could relate right now. And there's this thing called tox, and it's basically warping these girls. It's like this weird chemical or something, and it makes their bodies like bizarre. Like people are growing flowers out of their face, like someone has a scaled hand that's metal now. They're just body horror, weird shit going on. And the real like horror here is not knowing what is happening. Because like, ooh, if you're just writing like an apocalyptic scary book about body horror and not knowing what the F is going on, you are going to absolutely love this. Like, A+ for terror here. Like, do I think the overall plot could have been a little tighter? Yes, but, ooh, the scary stuff, they did not skimp on. It is terrifying. Like, the scary apocalyptic stuff happening, it's a good apocalypse. It's really good. I like that. And yes, this is YA, but, like, I feel like it's could be good for an adult audience. I feel like if you like trippy kind of sci-fi or horror kind of crossover books, Annihilation Baby by Jeff Vandermeer. And I think if you like that type of story, I think you would really get into this one. It's very kind of a similar tone. So I recommend if you like that. Next up, I have to recommend Dreadnation by Justina Ireland. Now, there can be an argument here that this actually isn't a horror story, because on the one hand, it's definitely speculative fiction, because this is an alternate history of post-Civil War America. So I would say it was definitely speculative fiction. But on the flip side, on the other hand, there's also zombies, which is classic horror. So you could really make an argument for both categories. And I'm like, you know what? It's not horror book recommendations, it's spooky book recommendations. It counts. So like I was saying, this is alternate history, post-Civil War America. And in the Civil War, the dead started getting back up. So now there's zombies. And we're following a alternate history America in the wake of zombies and the Civil War. So lots of things are different while still having nods to actual history. So it's really, really good just from a speculative like perspective, but also zombies, which is great from a horror perspective. And I love the main character here, because the story also focuses a lot on female friendships. So we're following Jane and Catherine, the complete opposite girls, but they both are in this like academy for training young women to fight zombies. It's kind of it's a school for particularly black women because it's after Civil War, and we all know the Civil War was about slavery, and I mean the slaves are freed, but post-Civil War everything just wasn't great. All of a sudden it still was pretty dark for a while, so we're still in that time period. So it's definitely like good from like just a historical perspective, and like these things actually did happen, but now it's twisted with zombies. And oh, Jane is such an interesting character. I mean, it's definitely a Western kind of story, and it's survivalist, there's zombies, and just like awesome characters who are so three-dimensional. This is an incredible book. I recommend, especially if you like zombie stuff, or if you just like speculative fiction. Both are good. I recommend. I also have to recommend 10th Girl by Sarah Faring. Now, this book is a little bit of an acquired taste because I personally adored it. I thought the writing was top-notch. This is definitely a crossover book. It's technically marketed as YA and was put out by a YA publisher, but this isn't a YA book. Like, this is definitely an adult book masquerading as YA, but it's very good. I'll just read you like the top little blurby part here. where it says, simmering in Patagonian myth, The 10th Girl is a Gothic psychological thriller with a haunting twist. So, oh yes, it's definitely starting off with Gothic horror. You're at a remote boarding school in Argentina, the very south part of Argentina. So it's, you know, the bottom of South America is close to the South Pole. Like, it gets cold there sometimes. So it's definitely a different vibe from like a tropical climate. So it's definitely a very spooky manor house on this cliff where it's cold. And we're following these girls who live in the house, and like the teacher, a new teacher comes in who's hiding, you know, from like political assassinations, because the time period there was a lot of political upheaval. So there's all that. And also it gets real creepy real fast. And there's like ghostiness and like creepy stuff. Honestly, like I feel like if you like Shirley Jackson, that type of vibe, you would really, really get into this. I feel like it's a kind of a similar tone. And here's the deal. I think everyone likes this book up to a certain point because there is a big twist. Like a big what the hell twist. It's so like out of nowhere, honestly, that you're just like, what? What is happening? And then you realize what was happening the whole time, and there's a lot of clues throughout, and then it all comes together and you're like, wait, what? So it's either you're gonna really, really like that twist or you're gonna hate that twist. I've only seen people love it or hate it. No one's like mediocre about it. It's kind of divisive. Personally, I loved it. I thought it was an excellent idea. I thought the writing was really, really good. So I do recommend. It's eerie, it's creepy, it's got a big twist, and it's so good. I also recommend My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix because, you know, exorcisms. This one is, it's kind of a creepy horror story set to an all-star 80s soundtrack. This is in the 80s, it's dealing with teenage girls and like the complex friendships between them, and also exorcisms and demonic possession and horrible body horror and creepy shit. The overall like vibe idea here is like, is friendship strong enough to defeat the devil? And it's so cute. It's like cute and dark humor at times, and it's also very creepy. It's an exorcism story, but with like full 80s, like it's immersed, it's dripping 80s. So it's nostalgic. I think if you like Stranger Things, you might like vibe on that hardcore 80s vibe where it's so 80s. It's here. And also, you know, there's friendship is a big part of this. There's the devil, demonic possession, creepy stuff happening. So it's really actually kind of good. And, you know, it's like, it has the demon stuff, it has the demonic possession stuff, the body horror, all of that. But really, it's also about friendship and how it's complicated and really loving someone else more than yourself even. So it's got layers, but, you know, the main thing here is like exorcism and demonic possession. It's scary. It's a good spooky book. Speaking of demons and stuff, I also recommend Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. And, ooh, like, this one is very different. Most of us know Stephen Chbosky from writing Perks of Being a Wallflower, you know, the iconic emo coming-of-age story from the 90s. And this is, like, demonic horror, crazy book, completely opposite from the other book. It's like two different authors. Oh, my goodness. We're following this single mother, Kate, and her little boy, Christopher. They moved to this small town, kind of trying to escape a very abusive relationship. And Christopher's a new kid in town. He's kind of an outsider. And one day, he goes into the woods because he hears something in the woods. And then, like, a week later, he comes back out of the woods. And everyone's like, what happened to this kid in the woods? Because he came back and he's, like, got creepy mind powers now. So some shit went down. That's, like, the essential mystery here. And, like, Christopher being drawn to the woods over and over again. What's happening? What is the bigger idea here? And, frankly, it gets biblical in proportion. Like I said, there's demons and shit. So, I would say, I don't know, I would classify it maybe as Catholic horror, if I'm gonna put a label on it. I mean, it's a lot, and it's crazy, and it's so creepy. It is a creep-tastic book. Classic horror imagery, but also Stephen Chbosky. And like, I mean, I grew up on Perks of Being a Wallflower. It was one of my all-time favorite books as a teenager. So I mean, I'm a bit predisposed to like this author, and this is a completely different work, completely different than that other book. And it's so good. Like, oh, it gives me all of the creepiness I could ever want. And it's still like that author's sense of empathy that we got in Percy Being a Wallflower kind of still transferred over here. So we really feel a lot of empathy towards these characters and their strife. And also, you know, it's about like a mother-son bond and defeating the devil and like all that stuff. And like, I'll admit, at a few times in here it does get a bit saccharine, but overall it's a good creepy ass story. I mean, there's creepy woods and children. Already, that's a recipe for creepy story. So, do I recommend this? Obviously, it's in a recommended video, and I think it's really good. It's very long though, so it's an endurance book. You gotta really invest, but it's really good. I do recommend. Next up, I have The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. And this is a what the fuck book, because it's gonna just be like, destroy your mind by the end of it, because you don't know what's real and what's not real, and that's very indicative of Paul Tremblay's writing style. A lot of his books are like that, where it's kind of open-ended, like, did that happen or did it not happen? I don't know. You're not ever really completely sure, because it could go either way. And it's somewhat similar here. So there's this little girl and her two dads. They go to this cabin, very remote cabin, to, like, you know, vacation, relax. And one day, this group of people come up to the house and they're like, listen, one of y'all has to kill another one of you guys or the world's gonna end. So, gets dark real quick. And so there's this group of like apocalyptic people who are like, we need to murder one of you. There needs to be a sacrifice or the world will end. And they think like, I don't know. You never know who's telling the truth. Is the world really going to end, or are they mentally having a breakdown? We don't know. You never know. I'm sorry, maybe that's too much of a spoiler, but it's like, you should read it and decide for yourself, because this book is super dark. Oh man, it's dark. It's like pitch black dark. Oh, but it's really good, and it's going to mess with your brain in the best creepy way. So yeah, I recommend checking it out. I also want to recommend Teeth in the Mist by Don Kurtagich. And this book is super visual because there's actually a lot of like interactive material in it. Let me try to find like a good example. Like, for example, there's like artwork, there's like spells and like all kinds of crazy witchcraft stuff. It's a very visual book. And also, like, ooh, I recommend the audio. If you could listen to the audio and read along at the same time, so you get the visuals and the sound effects, it is immersive. So for that, I do recommend reading along with the audiobook. But yeah, this is kind of a deal with the devil type of story, and it goes across 3 different time periods. So we have like the time period in the 1500s, the 1800s, and then modern day. These 3 girls who are kind of intertwined with each other, and this deal with the devil. There's demonic stuff, there's witchcraft, there's all kinds of craziness going on here. And I'm not really doing a good job of explaining it, but like, I do appreciate this for its eeriness and its overall vibe, because it's so interactive with all of like the artwork. They use different fonts for different characters speaking sometimes, because sometimes demons are talking and their font is like crazy. And there's witchcraft, and like, I do recommend the audiobook, because the audiobook, they put some effort in. It's like got sound effects and the demon voices. It's really good. So if you're looking for an immersive, scary experience, I do recommend this. It's kind of good. It's got demonry, witchcraft, multiple time periods interconnected with each other. Kind of like a weird ending. It's like yeah, you're gonna have to make up your mind about the ending in this, but it's really good. So I do recommend. Is it my favorite horror book I ever read? Probably not, but I do like that it's so immersive. So that's why I'm recommending this, completely for immersion. This was one of my favorite books of 2019, which is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first adult story by Leigh Bardugo, and it is much darker than her previous works. This is kind of dark academia. We're following this woman named Alex, short for Galaxy. And she is kind of from the wrong side of the tracks, but she has the ability to see and communicate with ghosts. So Yale, the Ivy League school, also full of secret societies, and these secret societies are actually doing arcane magic. And there's this ninth house, which are like wizard cops, essentially. They're around to be like, okay, your arcane magic, you're fucking shit up for everybody, cut that shit out. They're like the peacekeepers. And so they recruit Alex to be part of the house. And also, you know, there's demons and arcane magic and ghosts and all kinds of stuff going on. And honestly, I can't wait for the next book of this series. Oh, so much. I mean, it is very dark at points. And I will throw out a bit of a trigger warning for sexual assault because there is a pretty graphic scene in here. Well, there's a couple scenes in here, but one of them's very graphic. But it is written in a way with a sensitivity to it where it is very dark and graphic, but like I feel like Leigh Bardugo handles the situation with a certain sensitivity to it. So I would go with it, but just be aware there is a graphic scene in here, but oh, it's so good. It has like all of the creepy arcane magic and ghosts and just demonry everywhere. And also dark academia. It's at Yale, so it's kind of real world, but like what's behind the real world type of situation. So it's great. It's got eerie vibes, it's got spooky vibes, it's got everything you want. So I do recommend this one so hard. Please read it. I also recommend Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one is, oh, this is a lot. Okay, so it is Gothic horror, and it takes place in the 1950s in Mexico, and oh, this is a lot of body horror. I'll just tell you that. Overall, the general idea, I think the metaphor they're going for here is the horror of colonialism. It's kind of like a Jordan Peele horror movie where like Get Out, yes, it's a good scary movie all on its own, but it's also kind of about cultural appropriation. Like it's like that here, where it's like a good scary story on its own, but it's also about colonialism. And we're following this girl, Noemi. She is trying to figure out what's going on with her cousin. She married this like English guy, and they're living in this manor house in the middle of Mexico. So she has to go there and figure out what's going on with her cousin because her cousin has lost her mind. And so she goes and like, ooh, these are just creeps. The family of creeps. She's got to figure out, got to get to the bottom of what's going on here because it's nothing good. And, oh boy, this gets dark at points. And I will make another trigger warning for sexual assault because there's no full-on graphic scene of that, but there's a lot of assaulty behaviors throughout the book, and it's kind of often. So I just want you to be aware of that, but it is really good. It's very well written. It's so eerie and creepy. And it's just, oh, it's dark and mysterious, and you're just like, what is happening? Oh my gosh, that's happening? Barf. There's like some really dark body horror here. But it's really good. This was just released. It's kind of a newer addition to this list, but it's really good. I recommend. Last up on the list, I have The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. This one is kind of more of a traditional ghost story, and sometimes I just want good creepy ghosts. And this one gave me all the creepy ghosts I could ask for. So it's told in two different time periods, in the 80s and in modern day, between these two women who are related. This woman in modern times, she wants to go to this town in this motel to figure out what happened to her aunt because her aunt disappeared without a trace in the 80s. So she goes there to try to like find clues, figure out what happened, and ooh, this motel is haunted as shit. Like, straight up, I'm not saying a metaphorical haunting, like there's some ghosts and they're doing stuff. So if you want like a good haunting story with actual ghosts doing ghost shit, this will give it to you. And also, there's a murder mystery and the ghosts are there and they're trying to catch a serial killer. It's got a lot of really cool stuff. But if you just want a good ghosty book with actual ghosts, not like metaphorical ghosts, please read this one. It's excellent. Okay, so that's like a whole boatload of creepy ass books. I kind of really like horror novels in general. I like them better than horror movies because sometimes I'm a wuss and horror movies are too scary, but I've never been too scared by a horror novel. So I like them. They're usually very dark and sometimes the writing is so good. Ugh, like sometimes I'm just amazed by how much I like them. Let me know in the comments down below what kind of spooky books are you really excited for right now because it's almost Halloween. What are you reading that's spooky? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye!